Gaslighting 101. You ready? Let's do it. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Tamie M. Joyce. I'm the founder of Tamie M Coaching and the creator of the Freedom class and the Ascension class. Please take a second to say hello and introduce yourself in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to be notified so you never miss a new video. You know, I always find it interesting when someone tries to gaslight me. In particular, if they know who I am, what I stand for, and what I do for a living. Like, have you not been paying attention, boo? But there will always be those whose makeup is such that their very first instinct, their first inclination, unconscious as it may be, is going to be to say whatever it takes to cover their own ass and cast themselves in a favorable light, no matter how appalling they themselves have behaved. And by whatever it takes, I mean whatever it takes, no matter how untrue, cruel, or bizarre even, in particular in light of the circumstances. Moreover, there will always be people who are arrogant enough, self-centered and egocentric enough, and in my experience, sometimes even delusional enough, to believe that they can get away with this nonsense. And personally, I think this comes from the false sense of superiority they carry that causes them to believe that whatever they think, say, or decide is true, regardless of the facts, is what is true, and must therefore be taken for cash by everyone else involved. These people, my friends, are, among other things, gaslighters. And although I'm going to unpack this strange and bizarre phenomena for you right here on this video, if you want to learn more about the subject of gaslighters and gaslighting, you can also watch this video here and this video here. In fact, I have a whole playlist on the subject right here on my YouTube channel, if you really want to go deep. Now, for clarity, let's start with what exactly gaslighting is. Gaslighting is a form of emotional and psychological abuse where the perpetrator attempts to cause you to doubt your own experience and perception of reality. And they'll do this by either outright lying and/or twisting and distorting the truth while denying, minimizing, and invalidating you and your perspective. And let me be clear, gaslighting is a highly manipulative and deceptive tactic. It is lying, friends. Nothing less, but a whole lot more. Some common signs of gaslighting are flat out denying something that in fact actually happened, often right in front of your very eyes. It'll also show up in the form of twisting the story and rewriting history to suit their own narrative, as well as reversing the discussion to what you've done wrong, according to them anyway. It'll include shaming you for daring to bring something up or having the nerve to call attention to their shortcomings and relationship crimes. And it'll often include accusing you of doing something, usually something wild, that not only are you not doing, but you would absolutely never do. Gaslighters will rage at you for asking an honest question or pointing out a simple fact, a fact that shines a light on their less than virtuous character. And more often than not, this will all be topped off with a healthy dose of their playing the victim. And this is especially true if you're dealing with a covert or vulnerable narcissist. Nobody enjoys being seen as the victim of the story more than a covert. The victim to circumstances they not only create, but also perpetuate. And if you want to learn more about covert narcissism, you can watch this video here and this video here. In fact, I have a whole playlist on that subject for you to binge on too. As I said, gaslighting fundamentally boils down to lying and manipulation. It is most often used to attempt to convince you that a problem is not a problem, or a betrayal isn't actually a betrayal, or a transgression isn't a transgression, and that crossing lines isn't actually crossing lines, and of course that toxic isn't actually toxic or harmful. Following me? It also involves reversal of who is the victim and who is the offender. And this can happen in a nanosecond, lightning speed. People who gaslight will often do so by projecting their own attitudes and behavior onto you while acting as if you've offended and crossed a line with them somehow. They'll lie when there's proof, sometimes glaringly obvious proof, like 2 or 3 texts back. Just scroll up, boo. It's all there. Unless, of course, you're trying to gaslight me. Now, gaslighters are famous for telling you that you're imagining things, and they'll come up with very creative and demeaning ways of getting that point across. They'll also be in the habit of sugarcoating toxic behavior. When that doesn't fly, they'll tell you that you're not only too sensitive, but also that you're volatile and overreacting. Sometimes they'll go so far as minimizing and making fun of your hurt feelings, including outright laughing out loud and mocking at you and your feelings. Nice people. And of course, all of this leads to one conclusion according to the gaslighter. You're the problem. Couldn't possibly be them and what they've just done or said. It has to be you. Now, comment below and let me know whether or not you've had the experience of being gaslit. Let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you'd like to learn more about the possibility of working with me in one of my coaching programs, there's a link in the description below where you can apply to see if you qualify for a free one-on-one consultation with either myself or a member of my team. This is for you if you're ready and able to invest in yourself and your healing and recovery journey. If you want the pain to stop. You want to find a way out of the fog, confusion, self-doubt, fear, and anxiety brought on by having been exposed to empathy-impaired emotional manipulators who feel entitled to hurt you, and worse yet, blame you for the hurt they cause. If that's you, the link is in the description below this video. Have you heard of DARVO, friends? This is an acronym that stands for Deflect, Attack, Reverse, Victim, Offender. When there's conflict in a relationship and or an individual is feeling rejected in any way, and their very first instinct is to go on the attack with disproportionate levels of vicious, unwarranted, and unfounded personal attack directed at you, that is a lot of information about who you're dealing with. The next time you find yourself in a sticky situation with one of the humans out there, be on the lookout for DARVO. Again, Deflect, Attack, Reverse, Victim, Offender. If this is what you're experiencing, understand that what's going on has a whole lot more to do with the other person and their personal makeup and unresolved issues than it does you or whatever issue may be on the table at the time. The other thing I want you to be aware of is that people with this makeup do not change. If they've pulled this nonsense on you once, they'll do it again. Anytime their own fear, insecurity, and abandonment issues are triggered and or you somehow manage to trigger their narcissistic rage. Again, they don't change. In fact, what's going on with them tends to get worse, not better over time. So remember that. Now, back to Gaslighting 101. My husband and I recently had an experience where a situation took place, mainly through text, and the severity of what was going on caused me to feel the need to set a clear boundary, which I did, as honestly and elegantly as I could. You want to know who you're dealing with? Dare to set a boundary. What ensued was absolutely, without question, gaslighting. Now, of course, when I called the individual out simply by saying, I don't appreciate being gaslit, what followed told us everything we needed to know about who and what we were dealing with. Here's the thing. Telling someone that you would absolutely never do something that you just did right in front of them is gaslighting. Moreover, telling someone that you would absolutely never do something and you hope they would never do it either when you just did the very thing right in front of them is extreme gaslighting, friends. And if you've been following me for any length of time, I don't have to tell you how that one ended. Again, have you not been paying attention, boo? Scroll up. It's all there. Now, was this person a narcissist? I don't know, maybe. But what does it even matter? What I just described is a major red flag and not something that should ever be dismissed or ignored. Narcissists aren't the only people who gaslight. And no matter who's doing the gaslighting, in my view, that's an absolute deal breaker in any relationship. I don't need a label to make that call. People lie to themselves all the time, and they believe their own bullshit. That doesn't have to be our issue. Our issue is the standard that we hold in our lives. As the old saying goes, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. When they're willing to turn their own appalling behavior around, turn it on you, while simultaneously defending, justifying, and rationalizing serious relationship crimes, while in the same breath demonizing you, that should be enough information, no? People who consciously say things with deliberate intent to hurt you, diminish you, invalidate, or discredit you, people who consciously say things with deliberate intent to shift blame and shame onto you after they themselves have crossed lines of basic and fundamental decency and integrity, after they themselves have behaved appallingly, these people do not deserve the benefit of the doubt, nor do they deserve more chances. They deserve to be dropped like a hot rock. They deserve absolute zero contact. They do not deserve our friendship. Period. This is a no-brainer, friends. Now, that doesn't mean you aren't going to have feelings about it. It doesn't mean you aren't going to be hurt, sad, disappointed, or, depending on the relationship, that you won't have to grieve the loss of what was as well as what never was. It means it's your job to hold the standard in your life, and when people show you who they are, not who they've been pretending to be for some period of time during a honeymoon phase, but who they actually are, who they truly are, believe them. So what do? How do you handle it when someone attempts to gaslight you? Well, there's a few ways to go depending on your circumstances and whether or not you're operating from a fundamental position of strength. To begin with, no matter what, at least inside of your own mind, you want to name it for what it is. Tell yourself the truth. You know what you live. You know what you heard, what just happened. At the very least, hold on to yourself and your truth, your own perception of reality. And if you're operating from a position of strength and you're prepared for the backlash, by all means, call it out for what it is. In doing so, the person attempting to gaslight you is going to show you exactly who they are in response to you drawing a line in the sand and or setting a boundary by saying something like what I said a few weeks ago. I don't appreciate being gaslit. And not another word. And watch what happens. You can also respond with, that wasn't my experience, or clearly we remember this differently. That in itself is maintaining a boundary with the person attempting to gaslight you. Simply say, we remember things differently, or I hear you, that isn't or wasn't my experience. Or I'm stepping away from this conversation now. Or I'm open to discussing a solution with you. I'm not open to debating my feelings or my experience or my perception of reality. Or you can also say something like, I know my truth. I'm not debating it with you. Or I'm telling you how I feel. Is that a problem? Or I feel like I'm not being heard. I think I need some space. In addition, you want to actively work on cultivating your intuition and self-esteem. If, for example, you were perpetually gaslit by your family of origin growing up, or you're coming out of a long-term relationship where you were regularly gaslit, you're going to have to do some work on rebuilding your self-trust and inner knowing. And a really helpful way to do this is through journaling on a daily basis. Document all the things that happen along with how you feel about them and the distortions that you perceive. This will help you stay clear, especially when you start slipping into codependent amnesia, which can happen to the best of us. Support is essential also. You want to gather a good, solid, healthy support system around yourself. People who can validate you and verify your version of reality. And whatever you do, avoid isolation. Gaslighting and isolation can be a deadly combo. No joke, friends. For some of us, these are life or death issues. And on that note, if necessary, seek professional support, especially if you have started to feel depressed and hopeless. Sometimes all it takes is one other kind, decent, honest, highly empathic human to help you sort through all the nonsense and the bullshit and reflect back to you the truth of who you are. so you can begin taking your power back and start feeling much stronger and enjoy a much healthier frame of mind. Once you know that what's going on is gaslighting in action, it's much easier to spot and be aware of. Also know, however, that you cannot and will not change them, or their minds for that matter. People who gaslight as a means of propping themselves up and rationalizing and justifying all manner of relationship crimes tend to have bigger issues than are evident on the surface. Just see it for what it is, decide to hold the standard in your life, and walk away, far away if you can. People like this don't change. And don't kid yourself, gaslighting is nothing short of lying, steeped in all manner of manipulation, period. Whether they're lying to themselves as much as they're lying to you, whether or not they're fully believing their own bullshit is irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. And let's be real, the vast majority of the time, that is not what's going on. Come on, they know. But regardless, if you love yourself and respect yourself and have reasonable standards in terms of decency, honesty, honor, and integrity in your life and your relationships, gaslighting is going to be the end of the road where you get off the bus. And if that's not you yet, that's okay. You'll get there. Remember, you're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to raise the bar, raise your standards. It gets to be a new day. It's time now. And with that, I'm going to call it a wrap. But before I go, how can Tamie M Coaching help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell to make sure you get my new video every Friday. Number 2, watch my free web class by clicking on the link in the description below. You'll learn about my personal journey and professional experience through decades of research specific to healing and recovery from codependency and narcissistic abuse. You'll also learn about some powerful strategies that you can begin to use today. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, and you'd like to be supported by a stellar community of like-minded people who are focused on solutions that actually work, you can learn more about my 8-week transformational coaching program, the Freedom Class, by going to TamieMCoaching.com and clicking on programs and reviews for all the details. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to break free from painful relationship patterns permanently and actually make lasting progress in your healing and recovery, go to TamieMCoaching.com and click on Apply Now to learn how you can become a client.